In today's video, I'm going to rate every single credit card I've ever had. You'll get to see chronologically from the very beginning all the way up until the last few months. Each credit card, what I was thinking when I applied for it, the many mistakes I made in the process, and my brutally honest thoughts about the true value and power of every card I've had. This is going to be a fun one, so let's get right into it. Up until this point in my life, I've assembled 11 different credit cards. Now, for some of you, that may seem like a ton and a ridiculous waste of time and a financial mess. Now, for others, that may seem like a surprisingly low number. It all depends on your perspective. For those of you who have watched the channel for a long time, you know I'm very value oriented and I'm really cautious before making the leap and picking out a card that I think will return positive value into my life. Now, though you think I might be biased because these are the cards that I chose, I'm going to be as real as I possibly can. I've had some great ones that I love and would recommend to anybody out there, and I've had some real clunkers and some embarrassing cards along the way too. So I'm going to get this done today on a classic tier list, with S being the overpowered cards that almost seem too good to be true, and F being the terrible ones at the bottom, and you'll see one of those early on. Finally, here's one note about my personal ratings. Credit cards come in all different shapes and sizes. There are certain cards that may be terrible deals for 99% of the population, but 1% can get them and get insane value out of them because it fits their lifestyle perfectly. I'm not going to rate these cards based on how valuable they were for me. I'll show you the ones that I have and tell you how I use them, but I'm going to rate them on how powerful they can be for the average person, because if I rated it based on my own choices, well, all of the ratings would be inflated because of the reasons I specifically got them. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into the first card that I opened back in 2017, the PSECU Classic Visa card. I feel like everybody has an embarrassing first credit card story, so here's mine. The PSECU Classic Visa has no benefits. No, really, it literally has no benefits. The one that they list that's an actual benefit is a low 12.9% APR, which is good for purchases if you carry a balance or cash advances. However, the negatives of this card are pretty much everything. It earns no rewards, has no benefits that you can actually go out and use, and it also has this really weird plus symbol card design, and it's some of the cheapest plastic I've ever held. Now, of course, I got this credit card because that was the credit union that my family used, and I think that's how a lot of people stumble into their first card. They just get whatever $0 annual fee card from the bank that their family uses, and that's just the card in their life, until they realize that there's other options out there, and there's actually a financial strategy between accumulating benefits and points, picking the right cards. I could say the only positive thing from this card was I used it to make on-time payments and build a solid credit score before advancing in the credit card game. This card is clearly an F tier card, and it's about as bad as it gets. Let's fast forward to August 2019. At this point, I'd held that PSECU card that was earning me literally nothing for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and it was time to advance to a real credit card. I was finishing up grad school, was working almost 40 hours a week, so I had a little bit of income coming in, and I was really passionate about investing at the time. And that naturally led me to the Fidelity Rewards Visa Signature card. That card earns 2% flat on every single purchase you make. It also now has TSA PreCheck and auto rental collision coverage. However, those were two benefits that weren't included on the card at the time I'd actually gotten it. I made a full video breakdown on the benefits and how this card can actually be used for some surplus value, so you can watch that later on after you finish this one if you're interested in learning more about the Fidelity Visa. I love this card because it was simple and everything was automated. The special flair that this card brings to the table is you have the option to have your cashback rewards automatically invested into a money market account. Those accounts these days earn about 4% back, so I love the idea that I was essentially multiplying my cash back over time through some sort of an investment account. As far as negatives, I really have nothing bad to say about this card. You could knock the card for not having a sign-up bonus, and I believe today it still doesn't, but from time to time, Fidelity will do some rare sign-up bonus offers, and it didn't offer any transferable currency. At that point in my life, I probably could have used some points to travel and actually take some free or heavily discounted vacations, but was so focused on investing that I may not have taken advantage of those benefits at the time anyways. For most people, I really like this card. I don't love it, which is why I would place the Fidelity Visa in the B tier. Let's fast forward to August 2022. I just started my second professional job, and it's still the one I hold today. And as far as credit cards go, starting this job was my red pill moment. This new job involved some travel across the country. A coworker told me that if I was traveling so much and spending money on airlines that would be reimbursed by the company, I should at least have a credit card that would earn me airline miles so I could get some free flights for my personal life on the back end. A coworker recommended the one that he always loved and used, which was the Southwest Rapid Rewards Plus Visa card. Taking that recommendation myself, that was card number 3 in my lineup. This card has a $69 annual fee. It's the lowest of the 3 options that you can get on the Southwest lineup of credit cards. It earns 2x in Southwest Airlines purchases, 2x on hotel and car rentals, 2x on local transit, 2x on internet, phone, and cable, and then 1x back on everything else. Your Southwest Rewards miles can be used, of course, for flights, but you can also book hotels and vacation packages, I believe for a little worse value, through the Southwest portal as well. Now, as far as strengths go, this was the first card I took on that had a sign-up bonus. I got locked in at 50,000 Rapid Rewards miles, which isn't great as far as this card goes, but I didn't know any better at the time. As far as the negatives, this card has hilariously bad earnings categories, and there's really just not a ton that it actually gives back to you as a user at the end of the day. I put this card in the D tier category, and I say that with one exception. If you decide to use this card and use it as a catalyst towards getting Companion Pass status, well, it could potentially be an A tier credit card for that use case only. Now, I fumbled this card really poorly. I didn't know what Companion Pass status was, and while I was able to use my 50,000 sign-up miles for about 2 free flights, which really turned the light on for the power of credit card rewards, looking back, I didn't sign up at the most effective time, didn't necessarily use those miles for max value, and I didn't use this card to get Companion Pass status, which is literally the sole reason that this card can be very powerful. However, I did make up for that by then recommending this card to my fiance at the time, as we saved and spent on our wedding, and she actually got Companion Pass status, and we used that for hundreds of dollars in free flights over the next year. So I did kind of recover after fumbling early on. The fourth card I added to my lineup was the Discover It Rewards card. I got this card by way of being an authorized user and hopped onto my wife's account in May 2023 after we got married. I wanted to be on this card because we started to think about earning high percentages of cash back in different earnings categories. And with this card essentially being a 5% rotating category card, it's one of the best out there to do so. The card is capped at $1,500 in spend a quarter, which breaks down to roughly $500 a month. However, fortunately, the categories that Discover tends to offer are really common ones that most people spend in, so it is pretty easy to get good value out of that opportunity. For non-category purchases, ones outside what's rotating in that quarter, you only get 1% cash back each month. Generally speaking, to all beginners, I love recommending this card because of the cashback match after year 1. It can be insanely powerful, effectively meaning you're earning 2% on non-category purchases and 10% in those rotating categories just in that first year. Certainly, there are negatives associated with this card in that you have to activate those categories inside the app, and it doesn't earn transferable currency, only cash back, so there's a limit to how valuable those points can be. I do rate this card as a B tier credit card, and I push it into the A tier if you're using it during that first year for that extremely valuable cashback match. However, it's not a good long-term card, which is why it lands in the B tier, and you certainly have to surround it by other valuable cards to make a good wallet work. Card number 5 really opened the doors to the travel credit card game. After being interested in this hobby for a number of years after getting that first Southwest card and playing around with how that worked, I wanted to dive full on in. And after tons of research, I concluded that the Chase Sapphire Preferred would be the single best beginner travel credit card. I still hold that opinion today, and that's because this card earns 5x back on bookings inside of Chase Travel, 3x back on dining, online groceries, streaming services, 2x back on travel outside of Chase, and then 1x back on everything else. It only carries a $95 annual fee. There's also a $50 hotel credit, essentially cutting that effective annual fee down to $45. This card is also well known for having strong point value. Now, while that's changed in the last couple weeks, with the transformation of the Chase booking system, points earned on this card can be at least redeemed for 1 cent each inside the portal, And with the points boost feature, we still have to see how this really plays out in real life, but Chase says essentially you can earn between 1.5x cents per point and 1.75x cents per point on purchases that are considered points boosted. Now, negatives on this card is that the online grocery category is very misleading. In practice, that's pretty hard to use, although you can do it if you get into some more advanced strategies. And this card doesn't play nice by itself. You really have to surround it with some other Chase cards to make this card reach its full potential. I rate this card still as an S tier credit card. Card number 6 was the Capital One Venture X. I opened this just a few months after the Chase Sapphire Preferred in January 2024. As I started to travel more and more in my personal life and for work, I decided it was well overdue that I got a premium travel credit card to enhance the experiences on my trips. While I was really tempted to hop into the Amex Platinum, I decided to go for value and settled on the Capital One Venture X. That was not a decision I've ever regretted at any point up through today. The Venture X has a $395 annual fee. I saw this as the best value play in my life because of the $300 travel credit, very easy to use inside Capital One's portal, and 10,000 bonus miles worth about $100 given at the end of each card member anniversary. It's got really straightforward earnings. 10x on hotels and rental cars inside of Capital One Travel, 5x on flights booked inside of Capital One Travel, and flat 2x miles back on everything else. I personally use this card as my catch-all card, replacing the Fidelity Visa because I wanted to enhance my value of the points I was earning through miles, which is possible, whereas cashback is pegged at a flat rate. Now for me, this card is incredibly easy to get your money back on. You also have Capital One lounges and Hertz President Circle status to enhance your experience with this card, and escape lounges are included in that lounge network, and those are really phenomenal as well. I'm fortunate enough to now have one in my home airport in Kansas City, which I like to stop by before every time that I fly. Since holding this card, there have been a few negatives that have started to come out. One, miles can be a little bit harder to use than other currencies you're earning with different issuers. It's not that miles are bad, it's that they're best suited with Capital One's international list of transfer partners on booking international trips, and they're harder to redeem through alliances for domestic flights. Second, there's no easy downgrade option with this card. If you want to get out of it, unless Capital One happens to offer you something inside their app as a $0 annual fee downgrade, you may have to cancel it and ding your credit score. And finally, there is a real thing called lounge fatigue. And while there are tons of great lounges on this card, there are tons of lounges that aren't so impressive as well. I still rate this as an S tier credit card, one of the best I've ever had, and completely changed my experience with credit cards from top to bottom. My 7th card was the Chase Freedom Flex. You probably can already tell why I got this, and that's because the Chase Sapphire Preferred was sort of sinking by itself. I had no real good way, other than my dining spend, to earn significant points through that card. I brought in the Freedom Flex to add a second rotating category card into my wallet, and I'd say that's worked out pretty well. This card is nearly identical to the Discover It. 5% on rotating categories, same spend cap of $1,500 every quarter, then 1% on categories outside of those rotating ones. The key benefit with this card is that the points you earn can be cash back, but they can also be converted into travel points if you have one of the Sapphire cards. That's what I did, and that's what I use those points for. On the negative side, and I started to experience this myself, was the issue of card management. When you pair the Discover It with the Freedom Flex and those categories are constantly rotating, not only do I have to keep track of that, but so does my wife, who likes the idea of playing the credit card game, but obviously is not as invested as myself in this process as well. So if you think about adding multiple rotating category cards, you have to have a way to strategize and make sure you're using them right. I like to use Card Pointers as a card management app to help assist that process. And I do have a discount code through the link below in this video if that would be helpful for you as well. But I will say certainly it has been a noted challenge because this card really doesn't do anything special other than add a vehicle for added ultimate rewards points. I like to put this one firmly in the C tier. Card number 8 was my first business card, the Chase Ink Business Preferred. I got this card for 2 reasons. One, it had a massive sign-up bonus at the time. 120,000 ultimate rewards points for just a $95 business card. It's a pretty common theme for business cards where we see these super high sign-up bonuses. And as many of you know, you don't legitimately need a big business. You just need something that earns you additional income outside of your 9-to-5 to qualify. I also actually need this card for a dedicated place to put real business expenses, which I incur from the costs of running and making these videos. That's paying my awesome editor, Georgie. So shout out to Georgie there, and a few software services that I have to pay for that are subscription based. This card earns 3x back on shipping, advertising, internet, cable, phone, and travel, and 1x back on everything else. Finally, I will note that it is a high minimum spend to hit that sign-up bonus. It's usually $8,000. Still, I love this card. It's an A-tier business card, and I'd recommend it to a lot of people. The ninth card that I opened was in February 2025, and that was the Citi Custom Cash. At the beginning of 2025, I became laser focused on making sure I was effectively optimizing my normal spend. That meant getting at least 3%, if not up to 5% or 5% value in every single category that I was spending in. If you're trying to do that, the Citi Custom Cash is a no-brainer. You earn 5% back in your top eligible spending category on up to $500 of spend a month. After that, you earn 1% cash back in everything else. For me personally, I use this as a dedicated gas card, and that's a really common use case for the Custom Cash. There's only one negative that I can say, and it's that the spending cap of $500 is on the lower side, but hey, no complaints. I've still found a way to make it work, and I firmly put the Custom Cash as an A-tier credit card. Card number 10 was much in the same strategy. This is the only debit card that I work with right now, and the card is, of course, the PayPal debit card. At this point in my setup, I was hovering around 3%, sometimes up to 5% back in pretty much everything. The one sore spot was my grocery shopping, which is a notoriously difficult spot to earn anything over 2% cash back or 2x miles in. The PayPal debit card was my solution to this problem. It uniquely categorizes groceries as an elevated category. And what the card essentially does is it allows you to choose at the beginning of every month from a number of different categories, and you'll earn 5% cashback rewards in that specific category, up to an incredible $1,000 of spend in that month. Uniquely, if you spend outside that category on this card, you won't earn a single cent in rewards. Now, I released an entire separate video, which you can watch after this one, going into deep detail on how this card works and what some of the conditions behind those categories are. However, the key thing to know is that if you decide to select grocery, this card can be really powerful. It actually categorizes Walmart purchases in store as a grocery spend. It does the same thing with stores like Costco, those wholesale clubs that are also difficult to get on a good credit card return as well. Now, on the negative side, there have been some slight nerfs to this card. It doesn't have a sign-up bonus, and transferring your money over to PayPal, which you have to do before you spend because it is a debit card, can be a little bit buggy. But I've considered it all worth it, and I've personally seen this card work so well for so many people, and I firmly give it an S tier rating. Finally, the last card that I've opened most recently as of March 2025 was the Delta SkyMiles Gold card. Having gotten all my normal spending categories covered, it's time for me to flip the switch and start getting some of those benefit and experience cards. That journey in climbing the Delta SkyMiles ladder began for me with the SkyMiles Gold card. This card has a $0 annual fee in the first year, but then accelerates to $150 every year after. It earns 2x back in dining, groceries, Delta purchases, and 1x back in everything else. The benefits were what piqued my interest in this card. It starts off with a first check bag free. Then you also get an $100 credit to hotels on deltastays.com, a 15% discount on flights booked with points through Delta, and if you decide to spend $10,000 on the card, you get a $200 Delta flight credit. This card does not offer phenomenal value. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit more about my thought process behind getting it, because I feel like it's a fair card, but you're not really going to exceed that $150 annual fee easily once you start incurring that after the first year. It doesn't have lounge access. There's no companion ticket or benefit that you can earn either through spending or ingrained on the card. And it's got multipliers in good categories, but those earnings multipliers are low. The single reason I got this card is that Amex has a family language policy where you have to work your way up the annual fees on their SkyMiles family if you want to get the sign-up bonus with each card. I have to start at the Delta Gold, then advance to the Platinum card, then advance to the Reserve card, and maybe potentially advance to a super premium Delta card that has been rumored to be in the works. More on that on the channel later on. This card by itself for most people is definitely a C tier card. It is straight down the middle, very average. However, I think there's a lot of potential following that SkyMiles lineup, so look on the channel to see other videos I've made about how you can use that to get extreme value if you're a frequent Delta flyer. So that's it. That's the lineup of the 11 cards I've assembled so far in my journey, and I'll let you take a look at the whole picture. In total, through the process, I've taken on $804 in annual fees and only canceled the $69 Southwest Rapid Rewards Plus card in that lineup. Through all of those sign-up bonuses, I've accumulated over the time 425,000 points or miles total, worth over $4,200 at a bare minimum in travel rewards. Thanks for spending your time watching. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.